Hey guys, and welcome back to So What Do You Do Again? On today's episode, I am remotely interviewing one of Hollywood's most prominent celebrity stylists. I am so excited for this one. She is a woman who I'm inspired by. Introducing Miss Ade Samuel. Born in the Bronx, Ade has worked her way up the editorial ladder in New York from interning at W and Teen Vogue before making the big moves to styling and assisting editors like Shiona Turini and James Worthington Demille, and forging relationships that would later lead to major magazine gigs, styling celebrities from Big Sean to Yara Shahidi to being on set of several music videos. But we'll get to most of her many iconic moments in this episode. Stay tuned as we jump into this week's episode with Ade. Okay, I'm going to jump back in. So let me know if you have any issues hearing me or whatever. But when did you take your first trip to Nigeria? Like, how old were you?
Ooh, my first trip to Nigeria, I think I was at least 11 or 12. And then I didn't take my first real trip, I say, until I was 28. I went back again. Um, and it was just a surreal experience. I mean, when I was younger, I went with my mom and my family, and I got to, meet my cousins, my aunts, and see, what my family line looked like. But I didn't really get the real experience of Nigeria until I was an adult, and that was when I was about 28, which is recently, and it was one of the best experiences ever. I mean, I tell everyone you have to go back to Africa. It's like so surreal and beautiful and just a needed place for everyone to visit.
Oh my God, I'm plotting a trip. I'm plotting a trip. I want to try to go this year
No, you
so
have
bad.
to.
I asked that just because I remember I took my first trip to Haiti when I think I was in middle school. It was right before the earthquake, but I did not appreciate it until like as I got older, now to my age right now. So that's why I always ask everyone how when they go back to their first initial their background, their country, like did they have that appreciation for it when they were younger compared to now?
I feel the same way. I think I appreciate it more as an adult because I was able to understand the culture a bit more. And I think when you're an adult and you get to be more explorative and be by yourself and really take the time to dive into the history of it from like an adult standpoint, it really was so refreshing to see it. And for me, I think what was so beautiful about going home was I got to understand myself through the people of my culture. Like I really understood certain like ways that my family were, like just the way that we were raised, just certain just I can't even explain it. It was just a feeling like, wow, I'm so connected in this space of home and I'm able to understand it better because I am an adult and I am aware of just just everything. I'm aware of the
Mhm.
fact that for me, it was like, wow, my parents really left this third world still type of country to come to America and just like the sacrifices they had to make to even do that and just to see like the mindset of the people at home and what how they turn, or the mindset that changes for them when they get to, trying to build their dream in America. It's really just a needed experience. So I think it's so important for people to like be able to go back to their culture as an adult and really take it all in from a different mindset.
I know that's I want to go back to Haiti and just like kind of take it all in and have a whole new appreciation from like how your standpoint is. I think it's so important as well. And I kind of want to go back into you growing up. Like, what was your relationship with fashion like? Because I know you mentioned how your grandmother like showed you pattern making and showing you the lace making, but how did that translate into your early years? Like, were you more so interested in how your outfits, or were you more so interested in designing? Like, what did that look like for you?
I always say people always ask me this and I think it's really one of those things that it was really a God-given just inclination of a gift. Like I really can't explain it. It's almost
Mm-hmm.
like God took a wand and was like, you're gonna be in fashion because I am from the Bronx, so my exposure of fashion really came from movies, television, I mean, what people were wearing on the street. And I just really gravitated towards how people looked. Naturally, I loved people innate styles within my neighborhood. I love the fact that, streetwear, where I was growing up in the Bronx was something that everybody just wanted to look good. And I think that's just a characteristic of being an African woman. You always want to look good and present yourself. I mean, that's essentially why we create custom dresses and custom silhouettes for events and weddings and parties, because it's always this idea of wanting to stand out and just the culture of just the African culture. But I really I think my earlier stages of fashion was really inspired by a lot of television, movies. I mean, just seeing what people wore in the street, in my neighborhood was really just, what drew me into being like, wow, I just gravitated towards what people wore. And just even as a young girl, I remember being in, after school programs, and like I would have a notebook, and or like while I was in class, I was just sketching out silhouettes of like, you know, skirts and tops. And where I have these ideas from, I don't know, but it just was an innate thing for me to gravitate towards what my teachers was wearing, or why this was a popular trend, whether it was like the newest Jordans or the newest jeans, when it came to
Mhm.
streetwear in the neighborhood, or, watching film or television, and I would see like a different world, or Sister Sister, or Fresh Prince, and Family Matter, like all these things, and I always gravitated towards the main characters and what they wore. And then when you got into the movie phases, and for me, like my favorite movies, Dirty Dancing and
Amazing.
Clueless, and all these all these classics where clothing was such an essential part to the character. I just fell in love with it, and I really take that back to the root of my culture, and the root
Mhm.
of pattern and prints. I didn't know I would be a stylist until I started to really work in the field of fashion and really, go to school for it. I mean, I applied to school in my earlier days. I applied to some high schools that were design high schools, because I was never a designer. I just would,
Mm.
like I said, I would have stick figures and just sketch little skirts and tops. But I just wanted to be in fashion school because I wanted to understand it. Unfortunately, I didn't get accepted to the fashion schools that I wanted to go to. So I ended up just going to regular high school.
And I know you mentioned how you wanted to go to these schools that were meant for fashion and for high school, but unfortunately that didn't happen. But I mean, you still where you at, but where did
Right.
you right? You still made where you got, but where did you end up? Where did you go to college? Like, did you end up incorporating fashion into that aspect as well, or did you maybe go in a safer route? Because I know for me, my parents were like, "Okay, you can do fashion, but you need to major in business. You need to do this." Basically to cover your ass.
No, no, and that's so smart. And I actually went to school for fashion. So I ended up going to Buffalo State College, and I did a 3-in-1 program. So I went to Buffalo State for 3 years, and then I ended with a dual degree at FIT. In
Amazing.
Buffalo, I studied fashion merchandising and textile technology. And then I went to FIT for advertising and marketing communications. So it was all within that fashion space. I stayed there because I knew in my core that's what I wanted to do. And even while I was in high school, I was still interning, and even when I was in college, I mean, before I even got to college, I had an internship with a woman who's still a mentor to me, Erin Habes
Hmm.
of Buffalo State College. She had this boutique called Sweet and Dirty Boutique. And, I had a job offer before I even went to college, just because I knew that for me, if I wasn't gonna get in the doors by, back in the day it was a lot of auditioning to get into these schools. If I wasn't gonna get in the doors that way, I knew that putting in the work, was gonna get me in the doors, and that's what I did. So I did go to school for fashion, and kept that passion and that drive in me.
I know I had to fight my parents and be like, I'll minor in business. I'm a major in retail merchandising and do what I want to do. Basically, I'd had to lie to them and pretend I didn't I didn't major in it. Little did they know.
No, and I understand. understand, right? But you know what's so crazy is like now that I'm older, I totally understand. Like, it's so crazy how like the older we get, the more we understand our parents, you
Oh
know.
my
And
god,
it's
I
like I
start turning
totally
into them.
understand why. Right. I'm like, am I my mom? But I understand why, going to school for business or other curriculum was important because the beauty of fashion is that it is a very experiential career. Like you have to dive right in and you have to intern and be an apprentice and so you don't necessarily need the school training, even though I really appreciated all of my school training in
Mhm.
fashion, but you don't necessarily need that in order to break through. So I definitely understand where they were coming from. And I always say, like, with my child, I'm going to be like, you might need to study business. You might need to go into finance, okay? Because when you want to get in business or fashion, you need to know those skills as well,
You're like, "I'm gonna need you to get into finance so you can pay my bills and
Right,
make my kids do
right.
all
I'm
of
gonna need you
it."
to be able to, like, girl. So I definitely understand that. I've never been one to like because there's so many ways that you can work in fashion, but
Mhm,
utilize your own skills of like or your own curriculums to make it work. If you study finance, you're going to need that when you start doing your billing and invoicing and you start talking numbers and trying to understand how to grow your capital. If you go into school for business, you're going to want to know that to understand how to
mhm.
run the business, when you become your own entrepreneur. So I think the fun part of being in fashion is that you really can. I mean, if you wanted to go to school for law, bless your heart and bless you because you'll be so, on point and safe when you turn into your own entrepreneur in this space of fashion. So I get it. I get it.
Exactly, I know, because I know I'll be signing all these contracts and don't even know what the hell I'm reading half the time. I'm like, "I need to stop giving
Right.
away my life." You just like, "Just get this out of my face." So basically, I need a lawyer.
Oh,
But you interned a lot during this time, like in your college years, and you gearing up in order to like get into the space of you being in the fashion industry. Like, why did you feel it was important for you to do so? Like, do all of these internships?
I felt it was important for me to do the internships because I didn't traditionally get into the schools that I wanted to get into. And I think um, I also traditionally wasn't sure of which part of fashion, I wanted to be a part of. And I think, I knew that I wanted to be in fashion. I knew that I loved clothes and I knew that, I loved helping people get dressed. But was there a job for that? I was unsure. So
Mhm,
for me, interning was my safe net of figuring it out, and figuring out what it was that I wanted to do and which space I wanted to dive into. So while I was interning, I was also working in a lot of odd jobs and retail was also a part of that space of like experience. So like in the beginning, I was like, oh, maybe I want to be a visual retail, a visual
mhm,
merchandiser. Maybe, and then I went to school for merchandising. So I'm like, okay, this makes sense. Then doing that and working in retail, I'm like, okay, I don't really want to necessarily deal with that customer experience so intimately. So what is it that I can do? So then I go into editorial and I notice, wow, I love what editors get to do. I love that they have a say in what's new, what's hot, the trends that's happening for the world. However, I didn't necessarily want to be sitting at a desk and I didn't necessarily want to just be writing all the time. So I said, okay, great experience being in the fashion closet, great experience doing that, but let me now try and work with some stylists. And when I got the experience of working with some stylists, I recognized that, oh, this is the space that I want to be in. I want to still be able to create the trends. I still want to be able to be a forecaster in that space, but I want to be able to do it intimately with either a project, a person, a magazine, and so forth. So for me, it was the testing out period. It was the recognizing that I'm a girl from the Bronx. I have no one in this space that's going to help walk me into fashion, and I need to know which part of the industry I want to be a part of. So I took my internship experiences as that, just lessons
mhm.
and really just trials to figure out what it was that I wanted to do.
And do you feel like you had mentors during that time?
I feel like I had a lot of support. Yes, I do feel like I had a lot of support. Mentors, not yet, because I was so young and still
Mhm.
new. Like I was
Yeah,
interning while I was still in college. So the
booked and
psychonism
busy.
of the craziness of Ade Samuel. No, let me repeat that because it's Ade. But the craziness of Ade Samuel was I was in school. I had 7 classes. I did extracurricular activities because that's what they tell you to do. There were times where I volunteered at the American Red Cross, and then I would go and I would intern at. I remember I would intern at W with Garrett Munns, and at the time, Edward Enninful was in the building, Alex White, Camilla
Mhm,
Nicholson. So I was around like just so many legends, and it was just the air of being around there was so enticing, and so like I just drew me in, that I just recognized that like I really just enjoyed being there. So
mhm,
it wasn't like, and I forgot your question, but just I'm just thinking about the experience, and speaking to you is like taking me back to that like awe moment of being like, wow, I can never be exposed to this being from where I'm from, and my family don't even understand what I'm necessarily doing after school, but I know that what I'm feeling being in these spaces, I can't explain it. And what I feel like I'm gonna gain
mhm,
afterwards, and the knowledge that I'm getting is nothing can compare. So it really was important for me to just stay in those spaces and really just dive in, and I didn't necessarily
mhm.
have mentors, but the people who were editors like Garrett Munns, Sheena Smith, those people were really helpful and instrumental to creating a space of like me recognizing what kind of job I would want after I graduated.
And do you feel like as you were getting into those spaces and growing in comfort of you wanting to work into the editorial scene and you doing those internships, did you see enough people who looked like you, like black and brown people? And if not, like, was that ever a factor in your head? Like, oh, I don't see too many people who look like me. Can I actually do this? Is this a space that I can actually, in quote unquote, infiltrate?
So it's weird because when I was at Conde, there wasn't a lot of people that looked like me, but there was enough for me to recognize that there's
Mm-hmm.
a space that I'm gonna have to work harder to get to, but it was a space, and people like seeing Edward Enninful in the building, seeing Shiona Turini in the
Mm-hmm.
building, Peju, um, it really opened my eyes to the idea that there were Black people working in fashion. However, when I opened the magazines, I didn't necessarily see the Black people on the pages of the magazines, whether it was the editors getting their spotlight or the models
Got
getting their shine or just even celebrities at the time. So it was such a different space. And then I think when I went to, and this is W Conde, and then when I went to Teen Vogue, it was a different experience because there wasn't any. I mean, there was not in like a negative way. It just
it. Mm-hmm.
wasn't any
Just
Black
facts.
people really in that space when I was there. And I remember when I started. I mean, I don't remember any Black people being in that publication at that time. I think there were interesting, cultures of people in the sense that people. I always say people have different cultures and backgrounds. It may not be a Black culture, but it's
Mm-hmm.
everybody has their traditional culture, and there wasn't me around there, so it was hard to see myself in that space because of the fact that there wasn't a lot of people that looked like me until later on.
Going back to you mentioning Teen Vogue, like you had an internship at Teen Vogue initially, right? And then you then turned that into a full-time job.
Oh my God, I learned so much at Teen Vogue. So I came into Teen Vogue as an intern. I mean,
You're
there
like
was
a
a lot of Black
baby.
interns. Now that I think about
Yeah.
it, there was a lot. Yeah, I came into Teen Vogue as right. There was a lot of us actually there. But I came in as a baby. I came in as a fresh, excited. I mean, to get a job, to get an internship at Teen Vogue is like a dream come true. This is during the time of what did they call that? The Hills, I believe it was, or what was that
Oh,
show
okay.
that was
Yeah,
on?
yeah. It was the Hills
It
when
yeah, it was yeah, but it was one of those reality shows. So to be able to be in this publication that is affiliated with Vogue, it was a dream come true, and I know I had put in so much work at W. So for them to accept me there was great. And I just believed in without knowing that it was a manifestation thing, or without knowing that, or being as awakened as I am now, it just was like, I was like, I'm gonna work my hardest so that they can offer me an opportunity. I didn't know that I would be offered an opportunity, my final year of college, which was awesome. But it was just like, I'm gonna put in the work and I'm gonna show them that I actually wanted to be there. So I remember I was working endless, I mean, countless amount of days, endless nights, long hours. I didn't care, didn't bother me at all. During the weekends, I would ask to volunteer and um, be an intern to like stylists that were on ground, like Heather Mary Jackson and James Worthington Demolay, and whoever was a stylist that needed a hand, I was available to them. And that really just cultivated my network within Teen Vogue. I just think fashion was such an exclusive space that any position that you had
Mhm.
in there was felt like a dream come true during those times. Now it's a little bit more, you know, um, exposed, and everyone, and it's a little
Mhm.
bit more of a community, which is awesome. But I think I was just so in awe. I was just like a little girl, just so excited to just be in the space of like Teen Vogue. Like, girl, what? So yes,
Full-time
I just kept
position, unheard
interning
of.
and full-time position, like, oh, no, not getting paid,
Coveted.
didn't care, let me work, right. And then I remember when Shiona, walked in the building as a Black editor, and it was like, "Whoa, who's this girl?" Like,
Mhm.
and Danielle Prescott was like that intern that was like a lead intern because she worked for Taylor Tomasi, that you would
Mm,
always see around, and you're like, "This girl is so cool. Taylor Tomasi is so fab." So it was like awesome to see them too, Shiona and Danielle come into the space of, Conde and Teen Vogue. And then it was like, oh, I see my people here. Like, now we have a little bit of a community. And I think, that really helped to push things forward for me in
mhm.
just people recognizing my hard work. I will say that.
What was one moment, I'm sure there's so many, but I guess one moment that really stands out for you during your time at Teen Vogue that you're the most proud of?
Ooh, a moment that stood out to me. Honestly, when I got the position as a fashion closet assistant, I think for me that was such a wow moment for me, for my
Mhm.
family. I mean, to have my first ever corporate job be with Condé Nast, and to know that I was going to come in and try to work the hardest to turn around the fashion closet and prove to them that, a Black girl can do this. I
Exactly.
felt really proud at that moment. And I always think about that moment because I remember, like, when I got offered the position, I mean, everyone knows the story now. I declined it because, I was interning so much with stylists, like I said, on the weekends and during my time off of, interning. And one of the stylists that I would intern with a lot was James Worthington Demolay. And, he knew the passion that I had for wanting to learn fashion and be in the space of whether being an editor or just being in the space of the fashion closet, and he knew how much work I put in. And I remember um getting a job with, Carla Welch now is Carla
Mhm.
Welch. I don't even think she knows. Oh, I always tell her this, and she's like, "Girl, I always forget if she remembers," but I always tell her like it's at the time it was Kamel and Carla. They were a duo. They were a duo team. At the time, it was Carmel and Carla, and they were a dual team. And I remember James Worthington. I was working with him, and then I got an opportunity to work with Carmel and Carla in New York. And I was like, okay, Teen Vogue, I gave you guys my dues. I interned. It's time to go. Now I want to do styling. I'm gonna do it full time. And, I remember me being like, okay, guys, thank you for this offer to be in the fashion closet, but I want to be a stylist and I need to go, not really recognizing like, girl, you still need to learn market. You still need to like have
Yeah.
relationships. You still need to like build your network. And James Worthington played a really big role as like a growing mentor, because he was like, girl, what are you doing? You
He
need to
checked you
go
real
back into the
quick.
office tomorrow. Yeah, you need to let Carmel and Carla know they will always be there. They're stylists like me, and you need to take this position with Kanye Nast. So I remember just really believing in everything he said, and I said, done and done. So I told Carmel and Carla I got this opportunity. They were like, "Girl, you crazy? You were gonna take? You said no to Teen Vogue for us?" love you. You're so ambitious, but go back there. So I remember
It's
just
like, "Get the fuck out."
I just yeah, but it's also like, who gets the opportunity to walk back into a magazine and say, "Hey, I would love the position," you know? And
Yeah.
then being able to say that and then prove to them that I'm deserving of it because they could have easily said, no, girl, you declined us. Who do you think you are?" You
Mhm.
know, but they said, we saw your hard work. We saw the tenacity you put in. We saw the late nights and we want to give you this opportunity." And I loved being able to cultivate a team. I love being able to train girls. I love being able to work with different editors and different stylists. I love being able to cultivate different relationships. Like it was such a fun time during those eras of fashion. I think the inclusivity was the only issue and
Mhm.
just the diversity was really one of the major problems for me. But other than that, I mean, I truly enjoyed being in that role and being hands-on. I truly did.
And what do you think, what chain of events kind of led you to become like the stylist that you are today from your time at Teen Vogue? Like, how did you kind of trickle into the celebrity stylist world and start making your name for yourself?
I think a lot of so, we talked about, me having these odd jobs and working
Mhm.
in retail and then going into the internship. And when I didn't when I worked enough in the position as a fashion closet assistant and then turned assistant accessories editor, I recognized that I still had that passion of wanting to put clothes on people, just that little innate feeling that I've always had since I was a young girl to love seeing people get dressed and seeing how clothes, how you can interestingly put clothes on people and how it becomes an art in a form. Um, it just I felt like I needed to be back in that space. And, again, without recognizing its manifestation, just believing in myself and believing in what I wanted to do and believing in my I took a leap of faith to say, you know what? My time has come to an end with Teen Vogue, and I really wanted to step into that space that I had turned down originally and dive into styling. So as God would have it, Kate Young, who I didn't know at the time, now I know her, but at the time, she had referred her assistant actually referred me to a stylist called Cher Coulter,
Mhm.
and Cher was working with Rosie Huntington Whitley, Nicole Richie, all these amazing people at the time, and I remember her calling me while I was while I was at my desk at Teen Vogue, which is so funny. And she's like, "Hey, I got your number from Kate Young's assistant, and you know, we're hearing that you're this amazing, person, a hard worker, and would you be interested in helping me? I can't make it to New York, and I need, Rosie Huntington to be dressed for the Safe premiere, which her husband, I believe now husband, yes, Jason Statham,
Mhm.
was leading, and Cher was like, I'm just basically just asking me to fill in for her to dress the celebrity, and I had to just get the confidence right there to be like, "You're a
Yeah.
stylist, you know what you're doing, and you know how to dress people. You have the skills, you have the relationships, you have the market eye." And I remember that first opportunity working with Cher and dressing Rosie felt like a wow, this is where I belong. Just seeing the images after on the red carpet and just seeing the red carpet images afterwards and also just having that one-on-one experience with a celebrity and connection really just drew me into like this is where I belong. So after that experience, Cher was like, I don't know if you want a full-time position or not, but I have this role, for Fashion Star season 2. I dressed Nicole Richie on it, and we're looking for a full-time assistant to be the costume, like an assistant costume designer for the show. And I was like, absolutely. And I remember like never being in like I've never came well, I'm lying. No, I did come to LA. So I remember getting that position offer and yeah, because I had come to LA with my friends and I recognized that like, oh, I love LA. This is great. Sunny,
Yeah.
it's nice, it's palm trees. I need to be here. Um
Warm. Hella warm.
so right, warm. That's number one. It was like warm sun. What am I doing in New York? So I remember coming out here for 3 months and working with Nicole Richie for Fashion Star season 2 under Cher Coulter. And it was such a pleasant experience. It was, that one-on-one connection, that ability to, style someone and see how it translate on TV, on camera, on the red carpet. And Nicole and I formed a great relationship to the point where she was like, "You need to move out here. I don't care. You need to move. This is what you want to do, and I moved back to New York. I ended up coming back under Shiona Turini, working with CR Fashion Book Issue 2. Sitting in the office, I was there and I recognized, damn, I really want to be a celebrity stylist. Like that's when it clicked for me. Like, because I
Wow.
came back into publication and recognized that, wow, I want to be a stylist. Like this is where I feel the most excited. I remember just going back into the magazines and recognizing, like, although I love being in a publication and I love creating art with the pages of a magazine, whenever I would work with a stylist, I was so excited. So while I, was in New York, I did see our fashion book. Then I ended up getting a gig with Patty Wilson and Alex
Mm,
White. So working under two major, iconic
yeah.
stylists, I recognize that like styling is what I want to do. So while I was like working with them and taking freelance gigs, with like Jen Patron, Patty Wilson, Alex White, I got a call randomly from Simone Harouche. And Simone Harouche at the time was doing Miley Cyrus, Christina Aguilera, Nicole Richie was her best friend. She's friends with like Kim Kardashian. She's California girl. Um, and she called me and she's like, "Hey, I got your number from Nicole, and she loved working with you, and I'm looking for a full-time, assistant. Would you be down to move to New York? I mean, LA. Would you be down to move to LA?
It's calling you right
And
back.
I'm looking for somebody with that New York attitude. Yeah." And I was like, "Thank you, Nicole. Like, Nicole Richie referred me. Like, I'm in LA because of Nicole. Like, so crazy."
That's
Um,
crazy.
and I remember talking to I know, and I remember talking to Simone, and she's like, "Yeah, I do Miley Cyrus and Christina Aguilera," and I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, "Oh my god, this is iconic."
Iconic.
So, so then I ended up right. So I ended up packing my bags and moving to LA, and that's where um I had to pay my dues again and be an assistant, with Simone for like 2.5 years. But that's where my drive and everything that I'm doing today started.
Was it hard initially to kind of, pay your dues and go back to being an assistant?
No, and only because, and I think this is where I say, when I think back to what I said earlier about my culture and going back home, I think understanding my tenacity and resilience and just my recognizing that I didn't come from a family of, people that would be able to help my career and where I needed it
Mhm,
to go, or even help me in the spaces that I was trying to get to. So I always felt inclined, or I always knew that it was important for me to learn and in order to grow. So for me, I didn't feel any way. I did obviously, it's always weird when you are an extensive assistant and you're like, okay, I'm an assistant again. But because I knew that it was in a different space, it was like almost like a different bubble. If I think of like
mhm,
a graph, it's like it was like a different bubble. Like now I'm styling. Like, yes, I've had, editorial skills. Yes, I've had, styling in New York skills, but I never had celebrity styling skills. So to come to and work under somebody like a Simone Harouche, I knew that I needed to assist her to understand the business of being that kind of entrepreneur because I never had that type of skill because I was always protected by a publication. I was always protected by the Condé Nast of the world
mhm.
and Carine Roitfeld's publication at the time. It wasn't a hard transition. It for me was like the next step up. And I recognized that this was going to be my last point of being an assistant and I wanted
Mhm.
to take it all the way in.
How'd you know? You just had the feeling like, okay, this is gonna be the one that's gonna catapult me to where I need to be in 2 to 3 years.
I just knew. I knew when it was my time to graduate from being
Yeah.
an assistant. I mean, based on the experiences and just it's just a feeling, an innate feeling of like, okay, you've gained all the knowledge that you need to gain. You've, created the database of market networks or contacts or, you've just created the database for yourself that you need in order to grow. And then I've always believed in this idea that like I couldn't stay in this one position and I couldn't stifle myself to not believe that I could do it on my own. Like I
Mhm.
couldn't. Like I just knew all the work that I had put in. It was like, okay, it's time, and although even now in my career I'm still learning and still, growing, I just felt at the time like I had experienced so much that I needed to experience as an assistant, and I was so hungry to style for myself. Like it's almost like you get this hunger of just
Mhm.
like I need to style somebody by myself. I need to have a client. I need like working for someone no longer excites you. And because as you saw or heard from my voice earlier, and just reminiscing about my experiences, there was a passion in wanting to be an intern, and there was a passion in starting out as an assistant and getting that closet assistant role. And when that passion died and that excitement kind of started to swindle down, it was like, okay,
On to the next, like, what's happening, yeah. And so what was your first, I guess, big break on your own that you really did and you were like, "Oh my god, I'm a celebrity stylist. This is what I am. I'm no longer an assistant. This is what I worked so hard to get to."
my big moment was when I got, my first Essence magazine cover story, or with Yara Shahidi,
Mhm.
Tiana Paris, and Janetta Elise. And it was the issue that coined the term Black Girl Magic. And
Mm.
then working with Yara Shahidi and her mom being like, we love what you do. Oh my God, your eye is amazing. And just taking all the skills that I had learned and all my work that I had developed, over the years to now, create my first editorial piece. I think that was my big moment when, Essence magazine really was, and that's why I'm so supportive to them even now,
Mhm.
because they really were my big break. They gave me my first fashion editorial spread, and then they gave me my first three covers, which then landed Yara Shahidi as my first client. But my big, huge
Wow.
breakout moment was when I got Big Sean, and I started to work with him. And my first job with him was the Grammys. That was the first gig ever, and had just been doing women's, and you know
How was that?
it was scary because I remember getting the call. I was, like, still living with a roommate in my apartment, and it's like, "Hey, wanna style Big Sean for the Grammys?" And I'm like, "What? Big," and I had never really done men to that point, so I'm just like, "Okay," but again, just knowing the passion that I've always had of looking at how people dress, studying the way people dress in my neighborhood and the streetwear and in television and cinema and all of that, and then, couple that with all of my experiences, I felt confident enough to say yes. And when I styled him that night, I remember I was still assisting, which I don't think I've ever told anyone that, which is so funny, but I was still assisting on the day that I styled him. So I was
Oh,
assisting
wow.
Worry Vice, who was also a big pivotal player in my whole entire career, because Worry Vice was the main stylist that I worked with in New York City, as I was working with like Patty Wilson and Alex White, and he was one of them. I was working with him on, oh, I can't remember. I think it was Andra Day.
Mm.
I feel like it probably was Andra Day, but I can't remember. But I was assisting Worry Vice at the time at the Grammys, and that was our last kind of moment together too. And at the same time, I had a client walk in, and that client was Big Sean. And then my phone started to go off, and I'm just like, what the heck? Why is it going off? And Twitter went bananas, like, oh my gosh, Big Sean in a suit. Wow, like this, and I think
Wow.
I'm not sure. And history, we may have to check, for records, because I hate being that person. But I
Yeah.
feel like I never understood why he went viral. But then I think about, is it because rappers were never seen in this type of format? Where rappers never seen wearing these types of really luxurious suiting to a place like the Grammys. It really, the Grammys has always been an expressive red carpet for musicians. And I think,
Mhm.
toning him down and making him kind of like a suavemente, like fashion, guy was such a big thing. And even his team was shocked at how he went viral. I wasn't like a big name, at the time. So it really was, that was the big moment where like I remember coming home and laying on my bed and getting a call from Billboard magazine and the Hollywood Reporter, and I'm like, what the heck? And I don't have an agent, I don't have anything. I'm just like, wait, what? Like, what's going on? They're like, we would like to talk about this outfit, and then I went viral, and then Yara started to grow, and then she became the style star of 2017, or and then I started like it just was growing rapidly, and that was the start. It really was Essence, Yara, and Big Sean Grammys that really all together came at a one pivotal time. But God knew I was ready, and that's what I said, is that innate feeling that you're like, I've done all of what I needed to do, and I need to confidently walk away and feel good with all the experiences that I've had and the lessons and teachings that I've been given.
Goodness, that must have been a whirlwind. That's incredible. Like to just be hit with that
I
much
even talking about it, I'm
exposure.
like, whoa, I did all of that.
Yeah, you did, girl. That's crazy. That is amazing. And I think in that moment, like of you, like you said, laying in your bed and being hit with all these different press people, like being like, oh, how do you feel, blah blah blah, like how did you kind of take it all in that moment? Like how did you like handle all of this new exposure, right? Because now you're in the hot seat, now everyone's like, the eyes are all on you. Like how did you handle that new, I guess, yeah, exposure to the fashion industry in a kind of a different light, because you've been exposed to it in the editorial world, and now you're in the celebrity stylist scene and
Yeah, I think what's, to be honest, and I love that I'm speaking with you about it, but to be honest, it was hard. And it's still like an up and down roller coaster of learning, because there's one thing to be a creative and artistic and know that you have this skill set, but there's another thing to throw in social media and, newfound people getting drawn into your work and having expectations for you that you necessarily didn't necessarily have for yourself. So all that attention that I wasn't prepared for was a lot, because it's not like I'm a celebrity who knows, or it's not like I'm someone who wants to be a singer or wants to be an actress. And I know if I get famous, I have to prepare myself for that space. I didn't know that social media would grow to where it's at today. And I never knew that we as, editors or stylists or people in fashion would have fans and people all over the world looking at us as inspiration and looking at us to continue to inspire them and continue to create new and fresh ideas within this medium of fashion. So it was a lot for me. I mean, even I'm still like kind of growing out of the pains of that expectation, to be
mm-hmm,
honest. I think the beauty of it is the exposure, and the beauty of it is being able to build a community, but the reality of it is there's still a business behind all of that exposure and that space of social media and the hype and all of, there's still a business that that is behind it, with pitching and making sure your clients are happy and making sure that you're not overdoing, to or overshadowing their press, or
mm,
just a lot that comes with it. And I feel like I wasn't necessarily prepared because it was still so new. When I remember when I was rewind to Condé Nast, when I was at Teen Vogue and Eva Chen was like the beauty editor at the
mm-hmm.
time, and she, Instagram just had come out, and we had this worldwide like release statement that said we will trial Instagram and social media for 6 months. We would like editors at fashion shows to take pictures and send them over to this digital editor, and that person, and it's only going to be a 6-month trial, and I
Wow.
remember, and I go back to Eva Chen because I remember her saying, hey Addie, people really are gravitating towards like your nail art, and people are gravitating towards you. And maybe it's because I didn't recognize that all over the world, people are like, wow, who's this black girl? And it
Exactly.
wasn't until I got older, people probably were like, who's this girl? How did she get here? And how do I get there? And that's where so I didn't take it serious because in the beginning stages of social media, no one took it serious. We saw it as maybe something that was a bit distracting. And even though it was disruptive, it wasn't necessarily a controlled disruption. It was just kind of like, it was all based on numbers now, and everybody, it's kind of just, it was just happening so rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward to, you know, me being moving to LA and getting this celebrity, and now creating this, just having a page. I never created my page with this idea of like, I'm Ade Samuel, stylist. Let me cultivate. Like, it never was that. It was legit just my page where I was just
Yeah, you're
posting
just
up
posting
random
your thing,
pictures,
your
pictures with
food.
friends. Yeah. And then like, yeah, and then more people started calling me, and then I'm like, "Oh, wait, okay, this is
This is
now
like
a
my
business."
portfolio.
But at the same time, exactly, but at the same time, who's coaching you?
Mhm.
Keep in mind, I'm someone that worked off of learning. I was someone who had to intern and have to assist in order to understand the space that I was in. I didn't intern for Instagram. I didn't intern for digital space. I didn't know that landscape. So that transition was very hard, and it's still it's something that I don't even talk about, to be honest, often. I'm speaking about it now because throughout this year, more people will hear, just I'm just going to be a little bit more candid in just the realities of being a stylist and being an entrepreneur. And
Yeah. No, I feel that. I feel that same way. I think there's constant pressure for us, just anyone in the fashion industry, to have this presence on social media, to be this separate entity on social media, and to use it as our portfolio, and to then monitor what we post that is more personal, right? Which can then get so overwhelming.
mhm,
It takes over. Like, I
yeah,
find myself like not even being able to enjoy something that's supposed to bring happiness. You take it more like a second job, and that's why I try to take breaks on the weekends now. I try to like limit my
yeah,
screen time, which is difficult because sometimes your girl just likes to scroll. Just like to stroll, like scroll down and see, just
yeah.
randomly looking at pages. But I think God knows, whoever, if anyone listening got it down, please let us know.
Right, right. And that's so true. And I do the same thing. I have to decrease because mentally it's not the most safe place mentally
Mhm.
when you think of social media and just where we are as an era. So it is important to take breaks. It is important to, like I sometimes will take a whole week off of social media and
Love
then I go
that.
on the weekends. And there's been like multiple times where I do that. And it's become because it's not fun when you're being judged on every single thing that you post and do, and people are waiting for that next aha moment, and not every moment is an aha moment. Every moment is just I might just want to post a random picture, and
Right?
sometimes you don't get the ability to do that as, in the spaces that we're in now, especially, you know, um people like us and, the creatives that are growing in numbers. But I think for everyone, I think honestly, social media for me, I'm like there needs to be a cutoff time. Like social media needs to go dark at 9 p.m. and let
Right?
everyone live their life, because we are missing, the intimacy of conversation.
Oh yeah. I was talking about this with my friend, and how every time I go out to eat, I see like couples or friends or just acquaintances at dinner, but they're on their phone. They're not talking to each other. I'm like, I
Yep,
can't do
yep,
it. I can't do
yep,
it. I'm like, I need to
yep,
talk one on one.
yep, yep, yep.
But going back, like
And it's addicting. It's an
it is
addiction.
addicting. It's like, because it's that reward, right? You post a picture, you're getting likes, you're
Yeah,
interacting with your friends. It's that instant reward, and it's also easy to
yeah,
be behind a screen and not be present, you know?
yep,
But
yep,
to go
yep.
back, I kind of wanted to touch base with you. You were styling editorials, and then you're styling for celebrities, like on the red carpet, and then you're styling music videos as well. Like, was that a difficult transition as well, in between the different styles of your work that you were putting in, or was it pretty seamless for you?
I think for me, because I come from the editorial world, it was a bit I wouldn't say seamless, but it was much more of something that I could relate to. Styling for a video and styling maybe a fashion story really is in the same family of things. It's like
Mhm.
you get a treatment, you get an idea, you get a theme, and then you need to style based on that, whether you're styling the model, based on a trend or a trend story, or you're styling, a video based on a character. So it was a very easy transition to go into video. Was actually always fun to me because I was able to take more of my editorial skills into that space rather than with red carpet. It's like a human being that has to walk, the specific carpet, or has to be, seen on a specific, press junket and things like that. So it wasn't a hard transition at all. But I will say that what I did love about being doing music videos was that it took me back to my love of cinema, my love of television, this idea of creating a world, that live for the artist. How can the artist be seen in this world of their music video? So that was what was most fun to me in that space.
And in the space of us talking about music videos, I'm about to ask this. Like Beyonce Formation
Yeah.
video, iconic. You were like, I already know you about to ask it. It's iconic, amazing. Like, what was that experience like? How did it come about? Because Beyonce, that's like I'm obsessed with her. So I just want to know for my own self.
Yeah, right. Who isn't, right? Like Queen.
Like,
No, so it's so funny. So Beyonce came through my former boss Shiona, who was, looking. She had been hired by Melina at the time, by, to do the video. And she was like, okay, I need someone in LA. And, you know, I was here, and my work was like really picking up a lot. So she saw just my connections and things like that. And she was like, I need this video. I can't tell you who it is until you agree. And I'm like, okay. And then she told me, and I'm like, what? Beyonce? Because at the time, Beyonce hadn't come out with anything. This was her, welcome back to the world.
yeah.
So, I'm like, wow, okay, no problem at all. And it was just like she was like, okay, we're gonna focus on Beyonce, and then the other stylist is gonna do the dance sequence, and then the dancers. And I'm like, oh my god! So like, not only am I doing this market work and assisting in this project as like assist like a stylist, I'm also now only gonna be working with Beyonce. Like,
You're right.
so it was such a amazing situation and experience because yeah, it was such a great experience, and I think everyone talks about that video because it's Beyonce, but I also think about, I was talking to my friend, and I'm like, I still think about the fact that, I go on YouTube and I see Miley Cyrus Wrecking Ball has a billion views, and I remember running to Target to get the wife beater that we needed to cut, the junior's wife beater that we needed to cut because,
Wow.
Terry Richardson only wanted, her to be in a clean silhouette. And I got the panties flown in from Switzerland from this brand called Zimmerly that I don't even know if they still exist right now. And, and then we got Doc Martens, and that was like to be on that set and watch. And at the time, social media, again, I wasn't so big on social media. So do I even have pictures? I don't even know. But just like being on that set and remember and having that ingrained in me was like so so much more than even a formation video. It's like
Wow.
between that video, between Big Sean's Bounce Back that has over 100 million views on that, and that being like my first video with this rapper, and his style just went everywhere. That was a huge moment. And then just thinking about like all of Miley Cyrus videos at the time, I was a part of that. So it's, everybody loves to talk about Beyonce, but I always think about just like all these other videos that will be iconic. Like so many people still dress up as Miley, in her bear costume, something that I was a part of for,
Girl,
her
that was my
videos and
Halloween
things like that. And
costume.
I like, no way.
Oh my,
Wow.
crazy.
See, I'm like,
Your
like
influence. Your
everybody's like,
influence.
right, right. Like, wow, that's so funny. Yeah. So
You've
I
been a
that's why I
part of
love
so many
video.
iconic moments in video, in space, in editorial, in just celebrity like style. Like honestly,
Mhm.
like do you ever just sit
I'm gonna
back
write a
and be
book.
like, "Damn, you do need to write a book, girl. You should be writing it right now." I'm
Right, I
serious.
know, right? What
I'm like very serious. I'm
I
like,
know,
you
right?
need
You're
to write
like,
it.
I'm dead serious. You're like, wait, because I didn't even tell you about Rihanna, pour it up video. Okay, I didn't even
What?
get to there when Jaleel,
Okay.
Autumn Vice hired me, and I was on set, with Rihanna for Pour It Up, and that became an iconic video as well. No, I
Okay,
was
slight flex. I'm done. I mean, I am wow. Ade,
but I
Ade.
will
You're
say, I will be
incredible.
honest with you.
You're incredible.
Oh, thank you,
Sorry,
thank
keep going.
you.
Sorry.
This, I mean, maybe I need to do more interviews because then I actually remember all these things. No, I think,
I
and
need the
this is the
book.
problem with social media where we are. No, right. This is the issue of with social media where we are and everything like that because we don't stop to smell the roses. We don't stop to take it all in because we're always trying to get to the next. What is the next phase? What is the next content? What is the next, and so this year I vowed to try and do that more, which is why, even speaking to you and just I keep like going back to things that I've styled, videos that I've been a part of, and different moments that I've been a part of because people sometimes try to break you down to think that
Mhm.
those moments were irrelevant, and I think sometimes when you are an assistant and you put in the work to either be there by yourself or do the market work, sometimes, at least for me, it took for a long time. I felt like it wasn't mine. It wasn't mine to say I did. It wasn't mine to say I was there. I wasn't, and the reality of the whole situation is that if the work that I was putting in, at least myself, knowing my heart, knowing the hard work that I did on all of the jobs that I've been a part of, it was mine to claim. So it's almost like I'm reclaiming my time and my work because I've been so often you're always often told that if it's not during the time of you, having your own client or things like that is
Mm,
irrelevant. And sometimes you do have to take a step back and recognize, like, wait, no, these were all historical moments that I was a part of, and I was meant to be a part of them. And it was mine to congratulate myself and smell the roses and actually keep pushing myself forward to thank myself and be grateful to the experiences, but also be celebrate the experiences. And that's where I'm at today. Today, like yeah, that's where I'm at today, rather than where I was even last year.
I love that you're so honest about that because I think, especially in our industry, like not enough people are honest, especially with their mental health and what they're going through and the realities of what the pressures of our industry and the work that we're putting into can then land back on us. So I commend you for doing that, and I think it's really important. So continue, continue sharing your
Thank
thoughts,
you,
and I
thank
think
you,
continue to do these interviews because it's important. So many people can learn from it. Um, but like
thank
jumping,
thank you.
yeah, no, of course. Thank you, girl. Shit. I'm like, I could spend a whole other 2 hours talking to you, but I'm not gonna take too much of your time. It is
I know my assistant is like, hello. It's definitely supposed to have a call at 8 o'clock, but it's okay,
oh my god, oh my god.
it's
We're almost done. We're almost done. Just give me like
okay.
a 5 minute warning. Don't worry. Is there a celebrity who you have not dressed yet that you would like to dress? Or just anyone. Doesn't even have to be a celebrity, just anyone in general.
Hmm. I really would like to, you know what? It's so crazy because everyone always asks me that, and I don't know. But I mean, I would love to dress Kim Kardashian. I think that would
Mhm.
be fun. I would love to dress Oprah. I would love to dress Michelle Obama. I think that would be fun. I don't really ever have like a wish list of who I want to dress, to be honest. I never
Mhm.
really did. I need to create one, but um, so I'm pretty open. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty open. But I think iconic women like that, like Michelle Obama, Oprah. I
Michelle's on
mean,
all the girls' list.
those women,
Everybody. I'm like,
right? She
Michelle, I'm
is
like, once she wore
just
those
because she's like
Balenciaga
you just want to
boots,
touch her, right?
once she wore those
You just
boots, it
want to
was
have that
over.
one moment. Right. You're like, okay, she gets it and she's hip.
I'm
Like
like, I love
that's
her.
all you need is for you to know that someone's down.
Exactly.
Um,
I was like, shit, make
but
her president. I
I just
can't. But
right. But
actually,
then I just like the Kardashian, just in the sense of like again, just wanting to touch someone that or dress someone or wanting to dress someone that I wouldn't necessarily do, but I know that would be fun to have to dress them. And I think yeah, she's yeah.
and to
Yeah.
kind of before we end off, I do want to talk about your shoe label, how you launched your shoe label back in 2016. Like, I just quickly, I know you have to go, but I just want to talk about how, like, what inspired you to create it, how, what's next, and how you want to continue to grow in that space in your all the other things that
Yeah.
you're doing.
Yeah. So I love accessories. I mentioned I was the accessories assistant editor at Teen Vogue before I left. And I always recognize I want to do ready to wear. That's I mean, I'm I let's rewind. I've always loved accessories. That stays. I always wanted to design, as to think back of, when I used to dress or when I used to draw stick figures and dresses and skirts, like I said, when I was younger, not really knowing what that meant. And it meant that my innate wand, to just even bring it all back in, that, wand that I said God kind of put on me to say, you're going to be in fashion. It just meant that I loved everything that fashion encompassed, and that meant even being a designer. So for me, I loved I saw the market for shoes as just the most challenging aspect of it, which is why I went to it first. Because my former boss Simone Harouche was an accessories designer as well, and we always talked about just the hardships of being in that space and just that market. And I figured, I was working a lot, and I was very smart with how I spent my money. So my shoes and the launch of it, everything was just my investment. I didn't have no investor. I didn't have a bank loan. I didn't have any of
Wow.
that. I just took the money that I saved to, invest in myself, in this dream that I had of wanting to start shoes and wanting to see what this would look like. Because I recognized while I was developing, like, wow, there's no women in this space. There's not a lot of women in this
Yeah.
space. There's Jimmy Choo's, Giuseppe Zanotti, Manola Blahniks, this, that, Christian Louboutin, but there was really no women. And I recognized that I wanted to not only break that mold, but try and create something that was sexy and comfortable, because I love heels and I love shoes, and I buy shoes for art. Like, I'm just that girl. And yeah, like, so with that being said, that's why I developed Ade Samuel shoes. But then my career took off, as in 2017, like I was
Yeah.
saying, when I got Big Sean and Yara, and then it just kept going. And you know the um the balancing of my shoes and my styling kind of was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna put her on a halt.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just put her on a slow halt. But the funny thing is, the relaunch in this year, going into 2021, I'm just so excited to just still be even spoken about in this space. And
Yes.
I have customers that still like
Congratulations.
buy the shoes. Yeah, and it's just really exciting because I know that there is more. There's always more. But when you're building, and like, I always have to remind people, I don't come from a family or a network of people who understand the space that I'm in.
Hmm.
People that can't even give guidance. They can give support. They can, show love, but they can't really give guidance into the space of fashion if they have not been in that space. It's just a very unique space to understand. Business, sure, but the politics of fashion is just different.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I've just where I'm going, just to wrap it all up, where I'm going in just um with my shoes is just really developing more of a brand that speaks to women and women who wear shoes and knows how if they feel. Like, I just want us to get back to a place where we trust women's opinions with
Mm.
the space of fashion.
Mm.
And
A word.
yeah,
I love
uh,
that.
that's literally the word.
Literally. Okay, last question. Literally the word, but last question. And this is what I end out all my episodes. And it's just, what would you like your legacy to be?
Hmm. I would love my legacy to be someone that was impactful.
Hmm.
I would like to continue to um, speak for, people like myself. and people that, when I say people like myself, I mean Black young girls, girls of other culture that maybe feel like they had, they didn't, like I said, they didn't really have um the community and the space of, because where they're from, there's, I get so many DMs all the time of like girls being like, my parents in Nigeria don't understand what I want to do, but I get to show them you and they can see. Or like, I get so many girls like, I really want to be in fashion, but I'm scared to tell my parents. I don't know how to explain it to them. And I'm so thankful to my parents that they were not like, oh, you want to do fashion? What is this? Like they didn't like chastise me. They just made me like, they literally like allowed me to be the creative, crazy hair cutting, different trend type of girl. They really let me be free in that space. But I really want that to be something that I'm remember, just, helping young people, young girls, really just find their voice and be confident and understand the space of, fashion and where they want to go and just the space of the world and trust in themselves. Like that's who I am for like people around me outside of fashion. I like to always be that voice of teaching and
Mhm.
helping people grow, and that's what I want to be remembered for. I really want to be remembered by with building communities and helping people just find themselves, their voice, and believe in
Amazing.
themselves.
Thank you so much, Ade. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, sis. Thank you, sis. Thank you, sis. Thank you, sis. Thank you, sis.